It is time for StreetWise with former chief of the New York City Sheriff's Department, former chief of the Seagate Police Department, retired New York City detective, Time Warner Public Access Media Award, Joe Franklin Super Excellence in Broadcasting Memory Lane Award, New York Veteran Police Association StreetWise Productions, host of StreetWise, Mr. Lou Telano.
Good evening and welcome back to StreetWise. I'm waiting for my guest to call in, but meanwhile, I think he's on the line. Am I correct, guys? All
yes,
righty.
this is Victor Hanson.
Okay. He's on the line at the time. All right. Professor Victor Davis Hanson,
Yes.
you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Thank you. We just did the promo. And by the way, I want to welcome you back to StreetWise.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Folks, I just want to reintroduce my guest. All right. He's an award-winning historian. He's a regular Fox TV contributor and New York Times best-selling author several times, especially his latest book, which is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the number one on Amazon is a best-selling book. Senior fellow at Stanford University Hoover Institution. He's a award-winning historian. I would take up all this time just introducing him, just talking about his background. I want to get right to the nitty-gritty. My guest on the line, he's been on StreetWise before. I want to welcome back Professor Victor Davis Hanson. Professor Hanson, again, welcome back to StreetWise.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your book is a great book, The Case for Trump. Pretty much sums up how he got there, and it seems to be like in chronological order, and pretty much what we see is what we got. Is that correct, Professor, with Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think so. I think even his opponents and critics admit that he's authentic, that he really believes what he says, and he doesn't change his appearance or accent or clothing depending on which particular audience he's addressing.
Hey, guys, could we make that louder, if possible? Could you make the sound a little louder?
Yes.
Yes, actually, Professor Hanson, he, aside from saying he's a typical New Yorker, like you've said several times, and he beat all the odds. And my question to you is he actually outperformed all the professional so-called politicians, and everybody was pretty surprised and maybe even in shock. How was he able to do that as someone who has experience, but not in that political, that political world, I might as well say?
Well, I think a lot of it was two things. He was able to navigate in Manhattan in that kind of Darwinian real estate market. He had to deal with, as he said, I think his term was mobsters and union people and social activists and politicians and green environmentalists to build things. So he got used to dealing with all sorts of people of different backgrounds and making all sorts of deals. And then second, he had a best rated show for about 11 years. And that was an ad hoc, impromptu performance on his part, real TV. So I think he learned what the public considers good ratings and good optics and what it doesn't. And those rallies that he stages they play to his strength. He came up with those names, Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb, Crooked Hillary, that resonated. And he's also indestructible in the sense that physically, for a man of 73 who allegedly gets very little sleep, 4 or 5 hours, and then he doesn't eat necessarily a healthy diet, he's not necessarily in trim shape, he has an animal energy that is just, when you look at other septuagenarians like Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden, they just don't have that physical presence that he does. So he's very unusual, and I don't think he may get privately depressed, but throughout the Mueller investigation and the attacks on his family and his person. He never seems to give up or sort of pout like Bill Clinton did during the Monica thing, or drank like Richard Nixon did during Watergate, or sort of become befuddled at times that Reagan did during Iran-Contra. He just, it doesn't faze him.
And people would say, how the heck does he handle it? How does he take it? Some people thought he just might walk away from it all. But like you said, the only person that I've seen in my lifetime that's similar to him, and I've worked with Rudy Giuliani. Rudy could work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week when he was campaigning. Of course, not as a scale as Donald Trump throughout the country. So it's questionable because I was fortunate enough to have a 45-minute conversation, a meeting with Donald Trump before my organization, New York Veteran Police, and I endorsed him. And I was amazed, like you just said, as the stamina, his energy, and he could talk to people individually and have a great handshake. So, but he is unusual. But you also something interesting. You even I'm reading some of your articles and some of your statements. He outperformed the favorite of many of us, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, he has, according not to me or to you, but to the Heritage Institute that measured his conservative agenda after 100 days and then after the first year, and found out that in terms of deregulation or tax policy or conservative judges, that he had outperformed Reagan at this point in his presidency. And of course, the Never-Trumper said that he would govern as a liberal, that he wasn't a true conservative. But if you just get dispassionate and don't get into the emotional, landscape, and just say, what has he actually done? When you look at, as I said, the judicial picks, or the increased oil and gas production, or I think he's winning with China, and I think Iran is in a desperate situation after we got out of the Iran deal and Trump ratcheted up his sanctions. I think North Korea's sanctions are really hurting them. So he's been able to reverse this sense of American weakness without getting in a war or without bombing people. And that's quite unusual that he's been able to do that. And then he seems to know what people want, or how the system works. So when Barack Obama said you need a magic wand to bring jobs back, or Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, said it was a fantasy that you would never land to get 3% GDP. He was able to do that from his instinct about how business works. I think he thought, if I come in here and I promise business and I promise the American people that we're going to deregulate and promote business and energy development and unleash the so-called animal spirits, we'll get a reaction, and we did.
But all his achievements, which you pretty much mentioned a few of them, how is it he's not getting the credit for it? It's like nobody wants to talk about it except people like you, and I do on my show. He's done so much in such a short time, but if you talk to some people, they just pretty much unaware of that. Why is it that he doesn't get the credit that he's entitled to, and for in regard to all his achievements?
I think part of it, there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know what percentage each one is responsible, but he didn't have any political or military experience, so he's not part of the establishment, and therefore he didn't play by the rules, or he didn't get acquainted with insider media people or politicos or the editor of New York Times or the president of CBS in a way that Obama did, for example. He doesn't have anybody on his staff like Ben Rhodes, his brother is the president of CBS, etc. And then he's systematically undoing the entire Obama legacy, almost everything. And that is really hard for the media, the universities, the Hollywood, entertainment foundations to stomach. And then finally, I think there had been a sense that the Republicans preferred to win I should say, to lose nobly than to win ugly. And they didn't reply, especially George W. Bush, when they called him a Nazi and a fascist,
Yes.
2006 to 2008. And there's a sense that Republicans just aren't going to get down and dirty when they're attacked. And then Trump comes along, and his attitude is, no assault on me, no false accusation or fake news narrative is too trivial for me to forget, and I'm going to go after everybody. And I'm going to wage a cultural war 360 degrees, whether it's Colin Kaepernick or whether it's the Squad or whether it's Planned Parenthood. I don't care. If it's abortion, if it's illegal immigration, if it's Antifa, if it's identity politics. This is a total, absolute war for Trump. And that's really surprised people. The left thought, wow, we're going to call him a bunch of names, a racist, fascist, Nazi, and then he's going to kind of shrink away like Bush and Romney and McCain did. And he's not. And they're not used to that, I think.
No.
They think, wow, he fights like we do. How can that be? He's not supposed to do that. That's mean. That's cruel.
Right.
He's adopted the tactics in kind, and that I don't think they're used to that from a Republican or a conservative.
No, in the fight game, he would be considered the great counterpuncher, and they didn't realize that. So, and especially now, as you mentioned before, that we have social media, it just kills him that he responds on Twitter and other social media outlets, and he doesn't give up. They don't frighten him. He doesn't budge. He, like I said, what you see is what you get, and that is amazing. You mentioned that when they call him Nazi, Gestapo, this Antifa, which you touched on. If anyone looks like Gestapo, is this Antifa group. If anyone that would indicate socialism would be the Squad that you also touched on.
Yeah, and I think that he's sort of oblivious to the things that they've done to him. I mean, Robert Mueller, there was never any evidence of collusion or really obstruction of a non-crime, and yet he endured it. And now they're going after, on Ukraine, they went after him last week that he was a racist, white supremacist. The week before was that we were headed for a recession, if not a depression. The week before, it was that his tax returns had come up again. The week before was, kind of an aftermath to Mueller. Before Mueller, it was the 25th Amendment, the Logan Act, the Emoluments Clause, and everybody has brought up the image of sort of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Every time they think they have him, they go over the cliff, and he just beeps and goes on, and that really bothers him, I think, as well.
So what do they have? They have now what you mentioned, the Logan Act, Article 25, I think it is, and but they must think that we are stupid because all they've been doing is attack. Well, you mentioned the collusion, his taxes, and now the racism, and it all failed, like you had mentioned. And now they're now they're going into impeachment. Do you think for the next, up until the election time, when are they going to talk about what they're going to, what they intend to accomplish? And I'm actually directing that to the who's ever left in the Democratic primary. Why, they seem like they don't have a mission. They don't have a platform. It's just the whole conversation and the whole discussion and the whole thing is just Donald Trump. Do you think they're going to do that up till 220?
I think they are. They've been a great gift for Trump because of all of the issues that they voiced in these three debates: reparations, abortion on demand, New Green Deal, welfare, I should say Medicare for everybody, for health care for illegal aliens, wealth tax. I could go on and on, but none of them poll, from what we can tell, 51% of the public's approval. So they don't have a winning agenda, and yet Trump so angers and frustrates them that the attitude, I guess, the motto of all those candidates is no other Democratic candidate will ever be to the left of me. In other words, I'll move left further than any other candidate. And they're going over a cliff. And you watch it and you think, wow, all of us had always suggested that they wanted to confiscate guns, but they would never be so stupid to admit it. And here Beto just comes out and says it.
Yeah.
And then you listen to Elizabeth Warren, and she's talking about, a wealth tax on money that people already paid income taxes on. So he's driven them so crazy that they don't really have a viable agenda. And in lieu of an agenda, they keep thinking that there's a magic bullet. If they just get angrier, if they just scream, if they just go after his daughter, his wife,
right,
his business, then that will be the magic that'll finally be the tap on the eggshell that collapses it. And the result is that even amid all these accusations, he's polling higher now in September of the year before his reelection than he did either Bill Clinton or Barack Obama at this point, and both got easily reelected. And so I don't think they understand. People are saying, when they watch those debates or they listen to them, a majority of Americans are saying, you know what, I may not like Trump's tweets, or I might feel that he's a little bit too crass for me, but compared to what I see on the stage, he is the only thing between socialism and this country, and I'm going to vote for him. And you can start to see that with his polls. They went up in Rasmussen to 52 from 45. His Real Clear Politics average is getting back up again, and you start to hear people. If you read columns every day, you start to see some liberals that are complaining that their own left has gone too far.
Right.
And you just start to get a sense that this is starting to shape up like October 2016 again, that people just say, you know what, I've had it with the left, but I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to nod. I'm going to keep quiet. But when I get in that election booth, I'm going to shock the hell out of a lot of people. And they don't seem to be aware of the volcano that's about to erupt.
Right. And what happens is because of that, he frustrates them. And I'm going to use the fight game as another analogy. If you frustrate your opponent, you get off keel and you trip and you make a lot of mistakes. That's what I see. That's what I see what's going on there. And
I think he does it deliberately, too, and he's very good at it.
and
he's very good at it.
He does it well. But he's an unusual, when I say unusual in the sense that he's not the norm. I've watched for many years Hillary Clinton. She'd get away with it. Whatever audience she was addressing, she would promise them whatever they were interested in, no matter what it was. She'd go to every town hall meeting, or she'd make a speech somewhere, and it could contradict what she said at a previous rally or meeting, and she'd get away with it. I don't think that works anymore. In other words, she was telling people what they want to hear.
That's being kind to her. Remember, whatever particular town she was in, city, she would say that city, Chicago or New York or what, that was her favorite sports team. And then she even changed her. When she was among the white working class, she had kind of a drawl.
That's right.
When she was with black audience, she had an inner city, I'm so tired. And she would mimic the accent of the particular audience she was addressing, and that didn't come across as genuine. Actually, it came across as condescending. He doesn't do that. He's got that Queen's sharp accent no matter where he is. I think people are finally saying, I have the independents, then some of the conservative Democrats, Perot voters, old Reagan Democrats, they're saying, I don't have a choice in 2020. I can see that the economy's booming. We're restoring credibility overseas. I don't really care about Trump's personal life. All I know is he fights back against socialism and this identity politics extremism. And right now, at this moment, at this time and place, I don't have a choice. And I hear that more and more from independents and people.
Yes, well, you're talking to an independent, and but I was with him from day one as an independent, which gives me the benefit. So they can't. I've been accused of being a Republican, if like that's an insult, or extreme right winger. It's just it's pretty much all name calling. There's no substance on all of them. There's no They really have nothing except criticism, and people are getting fed up and tired of them. Speaking of mimicking the crowd that you were addressing, I just got a big kick out of Joe Biden when he was addressing the African American group, and he started to speak like a Southerner. I kicked some dude's ass who'd corn something, and
yeah, I heard that.
It was so embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
He mimicked a black accent.
Yeah.
And he's always the hero of these little fables he creates. He's going to take Trump behind the gym and beat him up. He's going to beat Trump like a drum. When he was young, he was threatened to beat up Corn Pop.
Corn Pop.
Pop, yeah. And then when he was in the donut shop when he was young, he challenged a guy. He beat his head on a counter that insulted his sister. He's always the hero of his own Walter Mitty fables, you know.
Yeah.
He's not, and then he's losing his temper. Reporters now, he just shouts at them. He tries to lurch at them and grab them. He did that the other day again. So I don't think he has the stamina to go there. I can't imagine him a year from now, 365 days of that sort of daily campaign grind still at 79 years old, 78, 77, I should say.
Right.
I don't think he's going to be able to do it.
Well, there are people at 78 that can do it, but definitely not him.
I don't think it's so much the age. I mean, it's his age.
Yes.
I think Trump could do it at 80, and even Bernie Sanders could do it at 80, and Elizabeth Warren could do it at 80, but he seems to be more, his chronological age may be 76, but he acts like someone who's 90.
Right, exactly.
And I don't, and he's had 2 major brain operations for aneurysms.
That's right.
And that's no laughing matter.
He made a big error the other day, I think, when he promised to, 625 women, if elected, he's going to...
Yeah.
He's going to go. Yeah. We only have, we have 325 people in the country. I
thought, wow, even China and India don't have quite that many women.
Well, you know...
So...
I think I said maybe because he's counting the... women that are coming in over the border. He might be adding, the illegals to that. But he can't be, like you said, he can't be making these errors now at this stage of the game. If he doesn't make it till, I would say, if he doesn't make it, it's kind of hard to believe that he does till the end of next year. Who in your mind that you would think that would be able to stand up, especially in the debate with Donald Trump and the who's ever going to be left in the Democratic primary?
Well, the one who could debate him the best is Elizabeth Warren because she's the most fact-based. Her facts are scary, but she's memorized a script, and she comes across as energetic and youthful. I think she comes across, I don't want to sound sexist, but she seems more like Hillary, shrill and kind of unhappy and lecturing and sermonizing all the time. But she would do the best. But of all the candidates, if you imagine them after watching that debate on a one-on-one with Trump, I don't think they would do well. I think the best person would be Michelle Obama because with a wink and a nod, she could say, I'm really a surrogate for a Barack Obama third term.
Yeah. She'd
ignite the left, and it would be very hard for Trump to attack a black woman on stage.
Correct.
She's very confident. She's got a best-selling memoir. And if that convention is deadlocked and these candidates are polling poorly, don't be surprised if somebody tries to revive that option.
Wow. By the way, my guest is Professor Victor Davis Hanson, is best-selling author many times, and Amazon has him as a best-selling author in the case for Trump. I have to ask you this. This is a great book, folks. It tells you how Donald Trump was able to take on these very experienced politicians of the primary itself, the Republican primary. He ran against some tough people that had been around and are very politically astute. Yet obviously he knocked them out of the way, and we know what happened with Hillary. Why did you put this book together, Professor Victor David Hanson, in regard to, I have to say, how Donald Trump got where he is today. Why did you? You're pretty much, I would say, a military historian, folks. And by the way, Professor Victor Davis Hanson is a farmer, also, and for these not to minimize what farmers can do, but he's pretty much like an intellectual, very astute, and you have to read his books, folks. Go on, just look for Professor. I keep saying doctor, but it's the same thing. Victor Davis Hanson. See many of his books. Again, first of all, again, why did you put this great book together in regard to Donald Trump, the case for Trump?
I was asked. I have a very liberal editor at Basic Books. We were talking, and she said, "Could anybody make a case for him?" And I said, "Well, I can explain why he won and why he probably will be reelected." And she said, "Go do it." So she gave me a contract to do it, and I had a different title, "Why Trump Won." She said, "That's not catchy enough." So I explained why people were dissatisfied and why this coastal elite was kind of out of touch with what was going on in the interior of the country, and why Trump's opponents in the primary didn't seem to understand that people were tired of Chinese cheating and open borders and manufacturing being outsourced and optional wars that didn't result in American advantage. And they were just on a script. Whereas Trump, being an outsider, came in and said, wow, there's 3 or 4 issues that nobody's picking up. And more importantly, these are issues that could bring that 6 or 7 million people out in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, that we usually don't win. And we can bring them back out, whether we call them Perot, as I said, or Reagan Democrats, or blue-collar workers, or Tea Party people, whatever term we use, we haven't been winning those voters, and that's why we lose these swing states. So he had a message that appealed to people, but especially to where the election was going to be decided. And then he was, as I said in the book, he was given a great gift with Hillary Clinton as an opponent, because despite outraising Trump 3-1 in money and having a captive media, she turned out to be a really polarizing figure and a very unenthusiastic, sluggish campaigner, and inauthentic, not genuine, and kind of mean-spirited. Going to West Virginia, say you're going to shut down the coal industry, or call people a basket of deplorables, irredeemables, and get really nasty. And then she had a lot of ethical liabilities, from Uranium One to the email scandal to Christopher Steele and the dossier. So she was not a good candidate, and Trump was able to take advantage of that.
It was pretty much a surprise to a lot of people because of her name recognition. And she dropped her guard. I'm sound like a fighter again. She dropped her guard, taking him on, and she ignored a lot of things. But I just can't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why she would.
It's always a mistake for a professional to underestimate.
That's right.
An outsider, and she did.
She did, and he sort of relaxed. She was promised of people that were surrounding and working on the campaign. She was actually, she was promised that she was going to be the winner, and especially in her mind as well. Now, if Donald Trump, in the book again, folks, is the case for Trump by Professor Victor Davis Hanson. If he did so well prior to achieving all these things that he's done in the short time that he's president, in my mind, he has to win by a landslide. It would be mind-boggling. It would be mind-boggling if he didn't.
Yeah, as I said, we're kind of replaying 2016. On the one hand, it seems impossible that a candidate could win when the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, PBS, MSNBC, CBS, every single night, every single day is calling him everything from a pervert to a crook. And that we've never seen 90% of the media against him, and that's true. And then we've never seen a Democratic opposition that says on a stage that the President of the United States is a racist, he's dishonest, he's a fascist, is the way that, and so you think, well, I don't think anybody could win against that. But in fact, it looks like he's going to get all of his base from last time.
Yes.
When you ask people that are a little on the conservative side, did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016? In my case, every time I've asked a person who voted for Trump, they say they will do so again. And when I ask people if they're never Trump or they sat out the 2016 election, and they say yes, and then I ask them, what are you going to do in 2020? They all say they're going to vote for Trump. If I ask a person who voted for Trump in 2016, I say, is there any chance you regret your vote, you don't like his tweets or whatever, you're not going to vote for him for re-election? I almost never find anybody that says they're not going to vote for him again.
Wow.
So I think he's going to pick up more of the independents than he did in 2016 because he has a record and because the opposition is scarier even than Hillary Clinton was. And I think that's going to, I don't know if he's going to win a big popular vote margin. He lost by 3 million votes almost 3 million because of California, but I do think he's going to win the Electoral College pretty easily.
You know, I just have a funny feeling that he's going to win both the popular and electoral for some reason. I think people just are wised up, and some of them are reaping the benefits that has resulted in what Donald Trump has achieved in the short time, and they see it, you know. And but we're not discussing what they're not discussing. And plus, they see the fact that the opposition is just attack. There's really nothing. What could they promise? They can't promise what Donald Trump has already achieved. I don't know. I would Elizabeth Warren, like you had said, she does have a lot of energy. But what can she say that she can do that Donald Trump has already done? I don't know what, except again, there seems to be their great weapon of criticizing Donald Trump.
No, they can't.
They can't.
Substantially nothing.
Yeah.
But emotionally, they make the argument that he's polarizing, and they don't seem to understand that if Donald Trump alienates 40% of the country, that they themselves alienate about 40% of the country. So I don't think they have an alternate agenda, and that's why they're reduced to ad hominem. And that's why I do think that Trump, because most incumbents usually win, and he didn't do as badly in the midterms as either Obama and Bill Clinton did after their first and midterm. I think he's got a good chance of winning. I think he'll raise a lot more money than the Democrats this time around.
Yeah,
because people in Wall Street overwhelmingly gave to Hillary Clinton because she had been speaking to them in private for enormous fees. They all thought she would be pro-business, and she wasn't a socialist. Now they're not going to give to a Democrat. I've talked to a lot of hedge fund people, Wall Street investors, 401k directors, and they all say the same thing. I can't vote for any of these people because they're socialists.
Right.
And so I think he's going to get a lot more money. And they didn't like Trump in 2016, and they probably don't in 2020, but they're going to give to him.
Right. Because
they know with him they have a chance. With Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, they have no chance.
They pretty much have no choice. Well, like you said, whether they like him or not, they have to vote for him.
I don't think they have a choice. I think police unions, fire unions,
absolutely,
they're traditionally Democratic because they're strong union people. But given what these people have said about policing, open borders, and attacks on the reputation of the police, I just don't think that a union member, and because Trump is not an elitist, he's not a Romney, he's kind of a union guy. He worked with unions his entire life in New York.
Correct.
I think they're going to vote. They're going to vote for him. And I live in a Mexican American community, and we have record low Latino unemployment, and they know their leadership hates Trump, but I imagine he's going to get here in California 40% of the Latino vote, just because we've never seen, and California is a very highly regulated, static, anemic state economically, but boy, it is booming now because of the Trump economy, and they're the beneficiaries of it,
Right.
and they know that.
And plus,
Anyway, that's why I think.
yeah,
I think he's got a good chance.
yeah. Well, folks, if anybody could pretty much predict, it would be Professor Victor Davis Hanson. You're pretty popular now on the law. You're pretty much as a contributor. All seems to like all different. Last time when we spoke, we were talking about military history, but folks, it's amazing. I don't really. He's one of the few people that seems to be you seem to be an expert on all different areas, Dr. Vince. And
well, thank you. Maybe know something, but not in any one. Anyway, I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, and thank you for coming back to StreetWise, and hopefully we'll talk again before the election, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Goodbye.
Bye now, Doctor, Professor. Just great guests. It usually happens. Because they're all. He's probably got to run to another. Or he's a lecturer. Of course, he's a professor, and a lot of times, which they say, Lou, I can only give you 20 minutes, and they always stay over. I have to tell you that. It's just I'm complimenting myself, because you'll see him probably tomorrow on Professor Victor Davis Hanson. You probably see him tomorrow, or maybe even tonight. You might see him on Fox, or maybe even CNN and these other talk shows. And but it's okay now. Great. It was my pleasure to have him, Victor Davis Hanson, back on. I want to talk about some things that's out there. It's just insane. Have you noticed with the climate change discussion or issue, climate change people? They got all these kids to leave school all over the country to demonstrate on this so-called climate control. But my question is, the people that are running the show with this alleged climate control, like Ocasio, who she's one of them, that the world is going to be over in 12 years if we don't do anything about the climate. And so the school kids pretty much authorized or got permission to leave school to demonstrate all over the country. But why didn't they do that? Why didn't they, the group I'm talking about that spearheaded this, why did they wait till school opened? Why didn't they spread their propaganda? They had all summer to do this, I don't understand. The educators today should have not permitted these kids to excuse them from leaving school to attend a rally, any kind of a rally, no matter what it is. School just opened and they're already not going to school. How do they make that up? These I tell you, it's just a mind-boggling what's going on in our school system. They're allowing these kids to take off to demonstrate and target certain people and certain groups in regard to climate control. They're saying, if we don't take care of climate control, it's the end of the world. What's going on in our school system throughout the country? They took out a basic prayer out of our schools. Many of the schools, they just can't even, they eliminated the Pledge of Allegiance in our schools. And now it's getting, folks, it's getting worse. It's really getting terrible at telling the kids, youngsters in elementary school, you have a choice. You don't have to be what you were born. You don't have to be the sex that you were born. You could be any sex you want. because you're born a male or a female, you don't have to be, not compelled to be what God gave you, what God created. In His choice, if you should be a male or a female. Also telling you can marry the same sex. If you believe in the Bible, obviously we start off with Adam and Eve. We did not start with Adam and Adam, or Adam and Joe, or Eve and Mary. So if you believe in the Bible, you may not believe in that particular passage or the beginning of the Bible about Adam and Eve, but you do know this. God made you what you are, So young children, they're so vulnerable at a certain stage in life, and we know that. So they're being told in regard to climate control, your only savior, if you want to make it to adulthood, is that you have to vote Democrat. That's the story, folks. That's exactly what it is. So they're being told, they're being brainwashed that your only salvation, if you want to make it to be an adult, is you vote Democrat. That's the whole story behind that. And our most vulnerable, our most precious asset is our children. And they are told you don't have to pledge your allegiance. You don't have to stand up and pray in school. By the way, the prayer was like a Judeo-Christian type prayer. They mentioned God. They didn't say Jesus. They didn't say Moses. They were talking about upstairs. They were talking about you have to have faith. You have to have a belief. And you have to believe there is a God, and God created all of us. That's all the prayer was, and respect. And that prayer was pretty much teaching you respect, which we're lacking now in a lot of our young people. You see that with groups like Antifa. These are young people, goons, I call them, hoodlums, I call them. So, and that's, mama's boys, I call them, these people. So what are they doing to our kids? They're being brainwashed. I cannot, again, not to be repetitious, which I am, these kids should not have been permitted to leave school or not attend school. School just started. And they're attending these rallies on these fake, phony climate. It's our time in nature, what's going on. It's folks, that's about what it is. It has nothing to do with politics, but they made it. They turned it into a political agenda. So you want to be an adult, you want to live longer, vote Democrat, because the Democrats are going to solve this so-called climate control. And then if we did, just say we did control climate control to a degree in the United States of America, what about China? What about India? What about all these other countries? We're going to just do it here in America? Is that going to save the world? Obviously, no, folks. I just want to talk about another promising people certain things that they're going to give them, like the Democratic presidential primary candidates who are running for office, like Professor Victor Davis Hanson said. They're promising. All they could do is promise people everything, especially the young people. You don't have to go to work. Just stay home, watch the 55-inch television, play your little games. Play with your Twitter. Folks, you can take that anyway you like, and get paid for it. So it's just mind-boggling, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with our kids. It's just amazing. And I want to talk about this Planned Parenthood. The Planned Parenthood. I don't know, why do they call it Planned Parenthood? Because they Planned Parenthood conducted last year 325,000 abortions. So why is it? It should be called unplanned parenthood. Why is it called Planned Parenthood? You're not going there to planned to be a parent with your spouse. You're going there to have an abortion. The program was really set up for people that couldn't afford certain medical treatment because they just couldn't afford it. So it became an abortion clinic. That's the whole idea of a Planned Parenthood. And guess who's paying for it? You don't have to guess. It's you and I that are paying for it. So why would, so when Donald Trump pretty much, wants to, I hate to use this word, terminate not a life, but Planned Parenthood, Planned Parenthood, it's just so sad to even talk about. 325,000 people. And you want to know what's worse than that? You know what's more disgusting than that? And these are your liberals, folks. And I'm going to throw in Democrats with that because they pretty much approve abortion. Body parts, so these kids are being sold. It's just the most outrageous, disgusting. If you believe in this person upstairs, you want to talk about sin, right? If you believe in not only are they having abortions, Planned Parenthood are selling the body parts. This is what this country's all about? So I agree with Trump. Let's take the abortion out of Planned Parenthood. How about using that title? You're going to go there because you want to plan to be a parent. How's that? Does that sound a little better? It's just mind-boggling. So some of the things that people are supporting in this country, it's just, I don't know where we're heading, but we're heading to have another win in 220. That should be Donald Trump. And it's going to be worse if we don't re-elect him. Speaking about Democrats, by the way, just, in my previous life, I was a Democrat, by the way. I was an old-time Democrat. Like most people, I have to tell my Democratic friends, I have to remind them that there is no more FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. There is no more Harry Truman. There is no more FDR, Those Democrats are gone with the wind. Probably the same year the movie came out, 1939, or a little after. That's gone. You have a party now that the socialist and the left has taken over. And the leader of the party, Nancy Pelosi, she can't control them. She cannot control this new socialist group, so they're controlling her. So this is where we are heading, folks. It's a socialist party now. It's not a Democratic party like it was. They actually, Democrats were, people belonged in old-timers, my parents and grandparents and people, and there's still a bunch of old-timers that believe that the Democrats are here to help the people. That was at one time, but not anymore. Speaking of Democrats, my favorite subject, another high-profile Democrat, degenerate Ed Buck, Democratic, big-time Democratic donor from California, was arrested. Finally, they had a couple of suspicious deaths in his home, resulted in OD, overdosed on drugs. In the past, he got away with it. Not getting away with it this time. He was finally arrested. What he would do is, folks, he would find gay African-American young men. He'd bring them home, and he would do what he ever wanted to do with them, and he'd, he gave them drugs. He shot them up in their veins and their arteries, mainlining, we used to call it, heroin, That's what you shoot up with. And what got him is one of the young people that died, he kept sort of his history. We put it in the book, and he said, if I die, it's going to be because of Ed Buck, who's going to overdose me, because that's where I go to have sex and drugs. And Ed Buck, you know who he is? Big-time donor of Hillary Clinton. Big-time donor of a lot of these Republican people that we see there screaming and yelling, taking on Chuck Schumer, by the way, another guy of that this guy donated money to. There was so many people that this guy donated money to. Some of them are giving the money back after it was revealed that he was one of their biggest fundraising people. You know, just like Jerome Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and others, you know, big-time donors to the so-called Democratic Party. And these are the people, you know. So the party right now consists of ultra-liberals, socialists, and degenerates. This is the new Democratic Party. My old party, by the way, which I was for many, many years, a Democrat, switched over to independent because there are a lot of things Republicans have done which I'm not crazy about. So I feel if I stay in as an independent, I could go either way, you know. So, and that's what I do. So, but I pretty much support the candidates who are on the right because I think they're right. So, but again, and that's the way you should vote. You should vote for the person you feel is the best for your town, village, your state, or your country. And that's where Donald Trump comes in. He's the best for our country, folks. And you have to vote for him. I mentioned to Professor Victor Davis Hanson, we're talking about the different candidates that are running against Donald Trump and poor Joe Biden. I mean, it's sad. I actually feel sorry for him when he and I'm going to just repeat what we talked about with Professor Hanson, that he promised if he's elected president, he's going to put 720 million people to work. Females, by the way. Imagine it. Hey, listen. I was a young guy, I would love if we had 720 million females, you know, in this country. Wouldn't that be amazing for us guys? You know, us guys who are, am I going to say this, who are men, real men, you know, who, when I say real men, we love women, you know, that's what I'm talking about. We adore women. But that's starting to change, folks. You know that. And the kids are being brainwashed. You can be who you want to be. You can be any sex, you know, but maybe after you become insects. You know, that's the next thing. LGBT, XYZ. Where we go? They keep creating all these monsters. We're going to run out of the alphabet. It's just, this is what the heck is going on. So it's just, it's amazing. Can't you see this? I mean, it's right in your face, you know, so. So many things are happening around locally and in the country, and I'm glad to see Bill de Blasio, the so-called mayor of New York City. By the way, he was just chosen as the worst mayor in New York City history. So he actually beat out David Dinkins. David Dinkins was the worst mayor, and Bill de Blasio came along and stole that trophy from him. You know, so he's the winner now. So. He actually believed that he had a shot of being president. Can you imagine that? I couldn't stop laughing when he was making a spiel somewhere, and he was saying, "I'm going to do to the country what I've done to New York." Could you? You know, he actually believes that he's done something great to New York, and I'm the mayor of the largest city in the country. I'm the mayor of the largest police department that has the largest police department in the country. You know something, folks? If it was up to the police department to vote for Bill de Blasio, he would be lucky if he got 3 votes, to be honest with you. So bragging about that he is the mayor of the largest police department in the country, you know. So, but I'm glad he's out, which we knew he didn't have a shot anyway. Folks, I got a great guest on next week, similar to my guests. By the way, I have great guests every week. I'll be back here at Strong Island Radio, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for listening to StreetWise. This is Lou Telano, and I'll catch you later.